Hello, my name is Hunter, and I'll be talking to you about my journey designing my EZ flashcard app. I know you are all on the edge of your seat, excited, so let's get started. I'd like you to meet Jim. Hi, Jim. Jim Cummings is a landscaper slash student. He's 28 years old, lives with his brother. He's an aspiring actor slash movie maker. He lives a very active lifestyle, you know. He's an actor. He's working towards a business degree. He decided to go back to school after being gone for 6 years. He's a very active member of his family. Very busy social schedule. Enjoys hiking, watching movies, but he really likes going back to school because of all the remote options available. Jim is having trouble finding the right time and place to study. He is always looking for more mobile ways to study that he can take anywhere. In order to pass his classes, he has to memorize all these terms and definitions. He needs to make very efficient use of his time. He needs a quiet place to study. He likes to be social, but he just cannot study around people, so he ends up studying on the go a lot and needs to be able to take his study materials with him. These are some good quotes. I'll give you a second here. I would always be trying to put finishing touches on my project or something so I could go party, and I feel secure with a digital backup of my study materials on my phone. I am always looking for quiet places to be alone to study, sometimes resorting to studying in my car. I think that says it all. These are a pretty specific set of problems. To address this, I have decided to create a mobile app that Jim can use to study specifically in a flashcard format. So I start sketching. These are some of my original ideas of how to, on the left side you can see some of my original sketches of how I was trying to come up with icons and graphics that really condense the idea of flashcards and studying just with a few series of pictures, and it was pretty tough. Sometimes I would have to resort and add a word or two. On the right side you can see some very rough wireframing sketches specifically for the splash or intro screen. You can see where I started at the top and then revised it on the second level. It gets a little bit cleaner, still real rough though because it's in an early stage and you don't want to invest too much time on fancy graphics or fancy user interface. After I got a decent amount of wireframe sketches put together, I combined them into a clickable prototype, and I had to test that. So I went and found some real world students, people who would actually use this kind of study method, and I decided to test kind of like a real world scenario where they open up the app, they navigate their folders, they create a new flashcard, and then they complete a short quiz. So a pretty typical user flow of someone who just downloaded the app. I thought that was important to not only give it kind of a natural flow and test the first things that people will use, but also to test the really important features like creating a new flashcard and completing a quiz. Otherwise, the app would not be very useful without it. And here are some of the early prototype problem screens that I ran into. The graphic all the way to the left is a screenshot from the intro or splash screen. where people they couldn't see the button. I hadn't emphasized it enough. There was too much going on the screen, and they didn't actually identify that as a button, and they could not actually get out of the splash screens. So obviously that just needed a bigger, more obvious button. The middle screenshot is of the add a new card task, and it's hard to tell from the graphic, but what happened was the text would just appear on the screen. It was hard for the user to know what was going on. There wasn't any, there needed to be more little in between screens, like click the empty box and have the keyboard pop up to create a more natural user flow. And I really was missing those natural user flow things that people expect, like a keyboard, things like that. So I just added a keyboard. The graphic all the way to the right is just showing you the format of my test. It was too unclear to users. They were not really sure what the test was asking them. So that obviously just the whole format of the test needed to be redone there. Real quick, some highlights of my revisions. Some of these were made before the test began, some of them were made after. The intro and the intro splash screen, as you can see, I took it from 3 screens down to 2 because it's the very first thing. They haven't even logged in yet. Want to just give them a real quick preview of the app, and I also emphasized the button so that you can exit the app easily. This is the login flow. As you can see, I added some screens in the bottom revised version, but these were necessary screens like the keyboard and the empty box to type your email into. People did not get it without these seemingly unimportant screens in between. They really needed it. And then this is how I improved the onboarding flow, very similar to the login. I had to add a couple of screens, but that completely streamlined and simplified the screens that were there. Specifically, this onboarding, I chose to show people the 3 main functions of my app: the add a new card button, the organize your cards and folders button, and the take a quiz button. Next steps I will take will be to continue to refine my original prototype. There were so many flaws that I will be continuing to refine and create a new prototype more suitable for testing. Once I am satisfied with the low fidelity prototype made of hand-drawn sketches, I will start on a mid-fidelity prototype in Figma or Adobe XD, something with just a little cleaner lines and more apparent buttons, but still nothing with a polished UI until that mid-fidelity prototype passes the user tests. Then once I really get the mid-fidelity looking good, I would love to start on a more polished high-fidelity prototype. But this is where I will emphasize how the whole experience showed me that an app that I'm designing feels more like a living thing, where you change one small thing and you can have unintended effects on the rest of the system. You really have to go back and retest. Every time you change something, you need to retest and make sure it doesn't confuse the user and the user flow. In that way, it's a very cyclical process where you continue to test, refine, tweak, test, refine, tweak. Finally, I'd like to share the good part about my summary is that users really did respond with excitement, enthusiasm, and intrigue when and where I thought they would. This is like a celebration or a congratulations screen after the quiz is done. Simple things like that really make the learning experience more enjoyable. Unfortunately, the bad part I saw was how quickly engagement is lost when the app does not react the way the user is expecting. Many times in the testing, I realized I made the screens too busy or did not give enough information to complete the task. In that regard, some of the tasks were not even not even able to be completed. So in that way, I need to redo my low fidelity prototype just to really get it back up to just testable standards. And the ugly truth I discovered was that users do not invest much time or energy or effort in a product like this. I had one user that slowly read the directions during the onboarding, and that user had very little trouble completing the tasks. But I need to know that that is the exception and not the rule. You have to assume people are going to be resistant to reading directions, whether they're in an onboarding or a help screen. And as a designer, you need to know that that's fine, because if they need the directions that much, then the design is not self-explanatory enough. The goal should be a design of an app that explains itself. That was probably my biggest takeaway, biggest thing that I learned personally. Anyway, thank you for listening. Congratulations, you made it all the way to the end of my presentation.